Good afternoon, Capital Debate parents and families, and welcome to our ninth parent showcase of the summer and our seventh public forum showcase. We're very happy you will be joining us for some amazing showcase public forum debates this afternoon. And before we get started, I just want to say a few things about our camp this week. And I'll start by introducing myself. Stan Banks, I'm the head coach for the debate team at West Orange High School in Winter Garden, Florida. And teaching with me this week is actually my assistant coach at West Orange High School, Niamh, and she will be talking to you later in the showcase. Um, we had a fantastic week, and our first week, all of our students in this particular class were first week beginner debaters. And what we did is we introduced them to the National Speech and Debate Association public forum topic for September and October. And this is the topic that high schools and middle schools all over the United States, and in some cases internationally, will be using for debate for public forum in September and October. Now, the style of debate, public forum, is the most popular style of debate in the United States, and by quite a bit. And so if your students are going to be attending middle schools or high schools who have debate teams, they are well prepared for the September, October topic. So after introducing the topic, we talked about how to research online and what are those best practices. We talked about how to cite sources using MLA source citation. We talked about case writing, and which is basically a very specialized form of a persuasive speech or essay. And so the skill sets that we worked on this week will translate very well across the curriculum. I think you will be very pleased at how much what the skills we work on will help them in classes. At that point, all of the students worked on their own cases. And because public forum is a team event, we have 2 debaters per team. But because we had an odd number in the class, you will notice that on one team we have 3 debaters that will be on a rotation. So everyone will get to debate the same amount, but some of the students are going to be going twice so that everyone gets their opportunity. After writing their own cases, of course, students had to prepare to counter the arguments on the other side of the topic. And Niamh is going to actually introduce the topic, the specific topic to you, so you'll know exactly what the debate is going to be about a little bit later. I just want to congratulate you on making a fantastic choice of getting students into a debate program. We appreciate that it's capital debate, but at any rate, having them in a debate program is one of the best things you can do for their academic development, and we appreciate that decision. So now I'm going to introduce our lab, what we call a lab. In debate camps, we call classes labs. So this is our lab, and this picture definitely captures the essence of our lab. We had a we had a lot of fun with these students. They have a tremendous sense of humor and a great. We really had a very good time working with them this week. So on that note, let's move to some awards. We want to congratulate Maybell. Congratulations for making it through your first week of public forum debate camp. Well done. Ethan, well done. Made it through your first week of public forum camp. Arev, good job. Arev, this actually isn't his first camp for the summer. He attended an LD camp with a earlier in the summer, but this is his first camp in public forum. Well done, Arev. Thomas, congratulations. You survived. Anna, well done. Such a great job this week. Congratulations. Okay. Um, what you see on the screen are the links to the student and parent surveys. We've already asked the students to complete the survey and provided them with a link, and we would certainly like parent feedback. I can tell you this is my 5th year with Capital Debate. I am a camp I'm a camp leader and instructor and senior instructor. And usually at this time of the year, I'm finishing up at Notre Dame in Baltimore, but this year I'm finishing up at home. So, but the reason I say that is because the camp surveys that we do in all of our camps, whether they're virtual or live, are really what drives our curriculum and our offerings that we have for students. And all of the many offerings that are new to Capital Debate came about because of requests from parents. Different courses parents said they would like to see as part of a communications or speech program. And not only that, the locations where we have had our camps has been influenced by parent surveys and where they would like to see camps closer to home for them. And so it really matters. Like Capital Debate above anything else is very customer oriented, and the decision making is customer driven. So we appreciate your honest input on the parent and student surveys. Okay, so I know that for many people the summer is winding down, but there are still additional camps that will continue next week, and there are some coupon codes for the next class. That's next class 2020. Debate 201 is offered. I believe there are a few other courses being offered, but I'm not certain if they are full or not. So that is something you could check on the Capital Debate website. So, especially if you're in a situation where school is being put off or the start of school is indefinite, this is a very good opportunity to continue with your child's education and provide them like an enrichment program so they're ready whenever school start in whatever form that takes. They're ready to continue on. Additionally, I think that many of us are going to find ourselves in a virtual setting, exactly what we've been doing all summer. And I can tell you that for myself, I am going to be starting the school year in a virtual environment with my senior English classes and my debate classes. And this summer has actually been excellent preparation for me as a debate coach who's going to be coaching debaters participating in virtual tournaments as well as in my regular classrooms. And I think it would benefit your students as well to continue work in some way in a virtual environment, because it very well may be the way they spend at least the beginning of the year. Oh, here's where we have our additional programs. Legal communication. Our legal communication provides a mock trial setting for communications theory. And that has been a very popular program, and I believe that came about from parent surveys. Our business communication courses, very popular courses. And this is a Shark Tank style. If you're a fan of that sort of programming, it's very fun. And they do a lot of hands-on development of a business plan and marketing. Very popular program. Interpersonal communication is one of our newer programs, and I think it's very important that we offer this program. It serves helping students learn interpersonal communication skills that are so important for academic success, and especially in, in our large schools and large, unfortunately, large classrooms. Like, interpersonal communication skills are very important. STEM communication, science, technology, engineering, and math. Um, this actually was brought about because the more we talked about the importance of communication, the more we realized that there were so many good ideas out there in the world of science and technology that may only be limited by communication, by the ability to share an idea in an effective and persuasive way in order to drive innovation. And that is the focus of the STEM communication camp. Also a coupon code for that, as you can see. Debate 201 and Debate 401. Okay, now our 2021 Debate League. Capital Debate has had a Debate Academy League for some time, but this year, the 2021 season, is shaping up to be the largest ever academy program that we have had. And this is especially for students who may not have a debate team to join, or a debate club, or a program in your area. This provides students from all over the country with access to an academy program that includes weekly coaching, weekend workshops, weekly practices, as well as monthly debate tournaments. And this is very, we're very happy with the interest and with the enrollment in the league so far. So if your students would like to continue with their debate experience but don't have access to a local program, the Debate League is the place for them. All right. Please keep in touch, team@capitaldebate.com, or the 800 number. And if you have any questions, contact us there and we'd be happy to help. All right. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm actually going to switch our presenter to Niamh, and so she can run our showcase debates.
All right, thank you so much, Stan. So like he said, my name is Niamh Harrop. I'm the assistant instructor this week, and I'm also the assistant coach at West Orange High School with Stan in Winter Garden, Florida, which is in the Orlando area. I currently go to the University of Central Florida, where I'm on the speech team, and I still try and stay as involved in debate as possible. It was a hugely impactful thing for me in high school. It was so beneficial in everything that I did, whether academic or personal, and I'm a huge advocate for involvement in debate. And so it's been really amazing to stay a part of that, and to be able to work with such talented young kids this week that I just see having such an incredible future ahead of them in the debate environment. So that being said, let's talk about what you're going to see today. Public forum debate, as Stan said, is the most popular form of debate in the United States. And I'll just run over some of the speech times with you and what you're going to see in the round. So first of all, we have a 4-minute, what we call constructive. So the students will read their cases and present the reasons why they believe they are correct, whether it's affirming the resolution or negating the resolution. They'll give you 4 minutes of why they believe we should either affirm or negate, depending on which side they advocate for. So you'll have the pro case and the con case. They may not speak in that order, but you'll hear both of those cases. Then there will be a 3-minute crossfire between the first two speakers. So the students who read the cases will then have a crossfire period where they get to ask each other questions and answer questions pertaining to the cases. Then we'll move on to a 4-minute rebuttal period. So each team, again, will have 4 minutes to refute all of their opponent's claims and explain why those claims are wrong, or present why, if their opponent said something was bad, they could say that it's actually good. So they'll be able to respond for 4 minutes. That will be from a different speaker because this is a partner event. So that will be from the second speaker on each team. Then those speakers will have a 3-minute crossfire period where they'll get to go back and forth asking each other questions pertaining to everything they've heard in the round so far. Then we'll go on to a 3-minute summary. So this will be done by the first speakers, the people who read the cases. They'll basically just be summarizing the round. If there's any more responses that they need to make, then this is the last chance for them to do so. And they'll start to kind of close up and wrap everything up nicely and kind of tell you why they believe they're winning. Then typically in public forum debate, we would have what's called a grand crossfire, where all 4 students get to ask each other questions and answer them. But that would be really chaotic to do virtually, especially with some of the tech problems we've been having this week. So we've decided for our sake, for everyone's sanity, we're just going to skip over the grand crossfire period. So that puts us straight to the final focus. That's a 2-minute speech given by the rebuttal speaker. So again, the second speaker on each team. They'll basically be recapping the whole round, telling us why they believe they've won, why their arguments are more important than their opponent's arguments, and basically just putting a bow on everything. And it should be quite clear at the end of their speech that they believe they've won, and they should have made all of the reasons very clear. The practice rounds that we've seen between these teams throughout the week have been really, really phenomenal, and I'm so excited for all of the audience to be able to see what your students have put together. It's been very, very impressive, especially considering we've had such a short period of time. So the topic that we've been working with this week is listed on the screen. It's resolved the United States federal government should enact the Medicare for All Act of 2019. This is a really interesting topic because I know from my debate career, which began about 5 years ago, I have never seen a topic that has been this specific to just one piece of legislation or one bill. So I think it's very interesting that the students have been able to dive really in depth with that piece of legislation, and that it's something that's very relevant and very topical right now as well. Of course, with the presidential election, so many people are talking about Medicare for all. And of course, with the pandemic that's going on, healthcare is at the forefront of our global consciousness. So it's been very interesting to delve into what healthcare looks like, what it looked like when we were initially having presidential debates, and what it looks like now that we've had the COVID issue as well. So the students have been doing a lot of research. They're very aware that updates on COVID could mean that things change at the last minute, but they've been keeping themselves well read and up to date on everything. It really has been very impressive to see the work that they've put in. So as Mr. Banks said, we're going to have 2 debates. There will be 3 students that debate twice, and we just want to thank them in advance for doing that. I think that's really great. That's a lot of phenomenal practice, because this topic will also be used throughout the competitive months of September and October. So it's going to be really great practice for all of the students to be able to have more practice now, so that when they get to September and October and they're going to full-on tournaments, whether it be in person or virtual, they'll have a lot of rounds under their belt on the topic. So for those 3 students that are debating twice, we thank you in advance. We know you guys are going to do amazing. So without further ado, we're going to move to the first round. Our first round will be between Maybell and Ethan on the pro side, and Thomas and Arav on the con side. So I believe we agreed that pro is going to speak first in this round, and then in the second round we'll have con speak first to try and keep things even. So Maybell will be reading the case. Maybell, whenever you're ready, if you want to flip your camera on for us. The rest of the students will be leaving their cameras off so that we can make sure we have a good internet connection throughout. And students also have, I forgot to mention this, students have 4 minutes of prep time that they can take whenever they please. So either they will notify me in advance that they're taking prep time, or I will ask them before the speeches if they would like to take any prep time. So if you see students with their cameras on and they're talking, it might not mean that they're giving a speech and they forgot to unmute. It might just be that they're communicating with their partners through their communication apps on their phones. So yeah, I think that's just a heads up of everything that you might see in this round. Maybell, looking good, feeling good. All right, whenever you're ready, make sure you check that everyone else is good, and then you can begin.
Okay, is anybody not ready? Okay. Timer starts in 3, 2. My partners and I support the resolved. The United States federal government should enact the Medicare for All Act of 2019. Our sole contention is that MFA produces healthcare to all residents of the United States. A person's care shouldn't be limited to what they can afford or how they identify, which is exactly what the status quo is depicting. We have 2 key points we'd like to make in support of our case. First, MFA is not only great for every U.S. resident, but it saves a large portion of government and personal money. Our current healthcare system is primarily designed not to provide quality care to all in a cost-efficient way, but to maximize profits for health insurance companies, the pharmaceutical industry, and medical equipment suppliers. So many American families face bankruptcy and financial ruin because of the outrageously high cost of healthcare, seeking medical care each year due to cost. Sanders also stated, while thousands of Americans die each year because they cannot get the health care they desperately need, the top 5 health insurance companies last year made $21 billion in profits, led by United Health, which made almost $12 billion alone. Our current healthcare system is putting profits over lives. Judge, do you think this is tolerable? Additionally, Callahan, who is a medical student at the Columbia University, was stuck in a horrible cycle of arthritis. It's immoral, she says, the way that we treat people in this country. Using the MFA system would save a substantial number of lives while saving more money than our current system. A study done by the right-wing Mercatus Center estimated that MFA would save Americans more than $2 trillion over a decade, reducing the projected cost of healthcare between 2022 and 2031 from $59.7 trillion to $57.6 trillion. Those $2.1 trillion saved could help our society tremendously. Second, MFA would take away any racial and gender-based inequalities in the current healthcare system. Carter Phyllis Cameron of the North Carolina University notes that 28% of transgender individuals have experienced harassment in a doctor's office and 19% have been denied medical care. Another study conducted by Jen Cates et al. From Kaiser Family Foundation found that lesbian, gay, and bisexual individuals have higher rates of unmet medical needs because of the cost and are less likely to have a regular provider. Additionally, Robert Pearl of Forbes 2015 furthers that 25% of African Americans have elevated blood pressure, compared to 10% of white Americans. Yet Black patients are 10% less likely to be screened for high cholesterol, leading to elevated rates of strokes and heart failure. Judge, it's outrageous that our current healthcare system allows such sexism and racism to slide. Fortunately, Medicare for All can fix these problems. Caruso of the Harvard Public Health Review 2015 contends that a single-payer healthcare system would level the playing field for minorities. There are 2 impacts. First, improved care. In a 2013 study, Catherine Biker of the New England Journal of Public Health found that expanded healthcare coverage led to a 15% increase in cholesterol level screening. Second, promoting justice. Valerie Blake from the West Virginia University stated Medicare for All can generate a meaningful and intentional civil rights movement in healthcare that leaves our country with more robust civil rights protections for patients in the future. MFA will ensure that people of any race, gender, or height are taken care of. Thus, we affirm.
Awesome. All right. So Thomas, if you want to check that everyone's ready, and then go ahead whenever you're good.
Okay. Is anyone not ready? Okay, then the time starts in 3, 2, 1. My partner and I oppose the result. The federal government should enact the Medicare for All Act of 2019. The government has the obligation to maximize the well-being of its people. This means you should evaluate this round based on which side does the most good for the majority of people. Our sole contention is economic collapse. The economy is in recession currently and is shrinking. World Bank 20. The swift and massive shock of the coronavirus pandemic plunged the global economy into a severe contraction. The global economy will shrink by 5.2% this year. Economic activity among advanced economies is anticipated to shrink 7% in 2020. Interruptions in schooling and primary health care access are likely to have lasting impacts on human capital development. Tomlinson, 2019. If Sanders' plan is the gold standard, it is also most problematic, eliminating 2 million jobs, creating a system most Americans don't want. According to Kenneth Thorpe, to fund the program, payroll and income taxes would have to increase from a combined 8.4% in the Sanders plan to 20%. Even the person who wrote the bill said the taxes will go up. I do think it's appropriate to acknowledge the taxes will go up. Sanders admitted they're going to go up significantly for the wealthy. Taking insurance companies out of the supply chain would save money, but most of that cost reduction comes from laying off 2 million people, according to an independent analysis. MFA would eliminate consumer choice and put the government in charge of setting prices and determining what's appropriate. AmericasHealthFuture.org. A new analysis from Penn Wharton reveals that MFA could shrink US GDP by as much as 24% by the year 2060. MFA would burden American families with unaffordable new costs. Medicare for all would require the equivalent of tripling payroll taxes or more than doubling all of their taxes. 71% of households with private insurance would wind up paying more than they would under the current system. Kenneth Thorpe, chairman of Health Policy and Management Department at Emory University. Continued deficit spending collapses the economy. Roy 11. Spending cuts needs to be made to avoid severe economic disruptions. The national debt and deficits are rising at an unconscionable rate. The IMF report adds urgency to the need for meaningful action to confront the nation's debt head-on. If we fail to stop the spending spree, our nation will face economic collapse. Impact. Financial markets have responded not positively, but negatively to higher taxes. Ever since Bush announced his Yes New Taxes campaign, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of the most reliable economic barometers, has tumbled in free fall. On average, stocks have forfeited roughly 15% of their value. Since 1960, tax increases have led to slowdown in economic growth and often to recessions. Economic collapse leads to global nuclear war through miscalculation that causes extinction. Beard in 2000. History bears out that desperate nations take desperate actions. Harvard's Benjamin Friedman found that prolonged periods of economic distress have been characterized by public antipathy towards minority groups and foreign countries, attitudes that can help fuel unrest, terrorism, or even war. Economic collapse, the stress on poor nations will have increased to the point where areas like North Korea would be desperate enough to use nukes as threat. Strategic and nuclear studies have shown under such extreme stress conditions, once a few nukes are launched, adversaries and potential adversaries are then compelled to launch on perception of preparations by one's adversary. Rapid escalation to full WMD exchange occurs. The result, great nuclear war will destroy civilization as we know it. Even if it's not extinction, economic distress, economic conflicts, or another financial crisis could lead to military confrontation. IPSnews.net. The result of this cannot be as outweighed, as if we suffer this economic drop at the state we are in now, this could surely happen. The impact is irreversible and thus the worst possible outcome. For these reasons, please negate.
Okay, awesome, Thomas. So let's move to the crossfire. So Thomas and Maybell, if you guys can kick your cameras on. And then Maybell has the first question because she is the first speaking team. So Maybell, time will begin whenever you begin asking the question.
Impact, did you say that countries like North Korea will be more likely to use nukes with economic problems?
Yeah.
How would MFA impact North Korea's economy?
It wouldn't. But cross-supply anticipating, so they're already under unstable leadership, and cross-supply antipathy for foreign countries under economic distress, and we get that we could provoke North Korea because of this, and they could react negatively because they're under unstable leadership.
Could you give me a question?
No. Wait, why take the risk when extinction is a possibility as humans? Our natural instinct should be to wish for survival of our descendants, right? Is extinction the worst possible outcome?
Well, what you're saying is a link chain, and if you take one part of the link chain out, it's not going to happen. So you're saying taxes lead to economic collapse, but what if they don't? Well, we affirm that they don't. So and even without MFA, we would more lives would be put at risk, because as we stated in our first subpoint, that our current system is putting profit over lives.
Well, answer the question. Why take the risk? Like, would you agree that extinction is the worst possible outcome? Like,
Well, we don't agree that MFA would lead to extinction.
so, well, which link in the chain would be impossible from happening then? Just outright impossible. Because if there's like even a slight possibility of the chance of nuclear war happening, then we shouldn't even take the chance.
Even if there was like a probability, it'd be so improbable that it probably wouldn't happen. But we think the like MFA leading to economic collapse would put a dent in that link chain.
So improbable. Like, even if there's like 0.1 out of 10, 100, wouldn't that still be a chance? Like, 1 in every 10,000 possibilities. If it happens to be 1 out of that 10,000, why would you take the chance? Just don't take the chance.
Yeah, it's also not likely for the U.S. to pursue nuclear conflict.
Okay, good. That's time. So now we're going to move to the rebuttal speeches. So Ethan, would you like to take any prep time before your rebuttal?
Yeah, I would like prep time.
Okay. I'm going to start your time now.
Okay. And prep time. I'm ready.
Okay, that was 45 seconds.
Okay. You ready with it? Okay, I need to get ready with the time. It is 4 minutes. Right.
Yes, 4 minutes.
Well,
Make
how
sure
much
you
time?
keep your camera on, Ethan.
And so timer starts in 3, 2,
Hang on,
1.
hang on, Ethan.
The first, wait, okay.
Sorry, your camera was acting a little funny, but I think it's okay now.
Okay.
All right. Yep. Looks good. So whenever you're ready.
Timer starts in 3, 2, 1. For the first point, they state that COVID-19 is making the economy unstable. But the shock of COVID-19 is what we needed to realize our healthcare system was failing. Coronavirus cases are getting worse by the day with hundreds of thousands of deaths. So many people can't afford health insurance and thus don't get the medical attention they need, which proves that our current system is not working. With MFA, everyone would be treated. Death is irreversible where economic collapse is not. With death is irreversible while economic collapse is reversible. Next, they talk about a tax increase. For the second subpoint, as we tell you in our case, the right-wing Mercatus Center found that MFA would save $2.1 trillion. My opponent also found that $2.1 trillion is not a lot, but in reality, so many Americans need it. So raising taxes wouldn't be as much of a problem as you stated, because families will still spend less on healthcare than they do on the status quo. They also stated that it would mainly raise taxes for the rich, not everyone. Judge, wouldn't you agree that healthcare is more important? Furthermore, you can turn this argument. Despite taxes, MFA would on net increase salaries by raising wages. According to the sayings of the Guardian, removing private health care costs from employees will generate significant increases in the salaries of their workers, so that even if they paid 6% income tax to fund MFA, they would still have more gross income. Now to their impact on military intervention and nuclear war. For the third subpoint, what they're saying is the chain of events. In a chain of events, if one event doesn't happen, then the whole thing won't happen, and at each link of the chain, the government can prevent it from happening. So the probability of nuclear war occurring is extremely low. They're also saying is that MFA is causing economic distress, but in reality, MFA would be great for the economy. As my partner and I already stated, if we switched to MFA, we would save $2.1 trillion. The government would increase taxes, but that would leave a positive effect on us all, because even if we're spending more on taxes than we like, more lives would be saved. As I already said, death is irreversible, whereas economic distress is not. They failed to recognize the fatal flaw in our case. COVID-19's impact on the U.S. economy will also impact national spending. Piper of the Brookings Institute in 2020 argues that the defense budget is unlikely to increase due to COVID's impact, meaning that the Department of Defense will have to cut down on their weapons purchases. If they do so, they will not have most modernized weapons, which means that the U.S. would not be as strong in a nuclear war. For that reason, it would be highly unlikely that the U.S. would pursue nuclear conflict. Finally, remember that their case tells you that economic stress makes other countries, such as North Korea, more likely to use nuclear weapons. However, they provide no reason as to how MFA would push these countries to use weapons. As they said at the top of their case, there are already global economic problems, so if these countries wanted to use nuclear weapons, they would have done so already. For these reasons, we are proud to affirm. Okay, that's it.
Awesome job, Ethan.
We'll
All
take
right.
running prep.
Okay, perfect. We'll start time now.
Stop prep. I used 57 seconds.
Perfect.
For an off-time roadmap, I'm just going to be going down my opponent's flow. I'll be attacking my opponent's case and then defending my case. Okay. My time starts now. My opponent gives their whole contention is based off of giving healthcare to all. But would we rather risk giving healthcare to all, or overflooded lines, the quality of healthcare will go down, and doctor shortages and hospitals will shut down by giving healthcare to all? Because their second subpoint is saving money. Cross-supplier contention 1. My opponent tells you that MFA will save money. Even if this is true, the Houston Chronicle states that there will be 2 million jobs lost. And referring back to a quote by Thorpe, there will be at least a 20% increase on taxes. Turn their contention because MFA will save money for the government but not its citizens. Therefore, they're not maximizing the well-being. Also, the government is cutting corners by reducing doctor pay and laying off 2 million people. They state in their case that they're not losing any, that nobody's being laid off. But according to our evidence, people are being laid off. And they even state in their case that insurance companies are making $21 billion. Why are we risking those $21 billion just to have an economic distress where more lives will be lost? Then they talk about improved care and better screenings. Turn the argument because the quality of care with doctors will go down. They talk about how there will be more screenings, but they never talk about how the quality of care will go up. Then they talk about promoting justice and having equality with gay rights and different sexualities and racial injustice. The Institute of Medicine concluded that an important contributor to racial disparities in health status is the difference between the quality of Medicare given to racial and ethnic minorities. This is already happening right now, and it'll just happen more with and it'll just happen more with Medicare for all, because it'll happen more because doctors are seeing more minority patients, and those people who are already and those minority groups don't have health care, and will just end up paying more taxes. Then they talk about racial and gender inequalities. Expanding access to healthcare insurance won't remedy racial disparities. According to Peak 10, professor of medicine at U Chicago, explains 2 reasons why racial disparities exist. One is systematic racism, which is residential segregation. Another is personally mediated racism, which is stereotyping ethnic minorities. This will still happen even if doctors are enacting MFA. This means enacting MFA will not reduce racial disparities, because even if racial minorities have insurance, they face barriers outside and inside the doctor's office. This is now they say that tax increase is will have less on healthcare, but actually this can lead to medical poverty. People get medical poverty by because the people who don't have health insurance end up just going to be paying more, and this will end up at a 30% increase in poverty. Then they talk about how the government can prevent any link in our chain, but this is actually incorrect. They give no examples about how the government can protect it. Then they say MFA is great for economy, but yet again, they give no examples about it. Then they say that economic distress is reversible, but lives aren't reversible. People are dying by the minute, and more people are dying with COVID-19. Economic distress will just make more people die because there will be doctor shortages, and the quality of healthcare will go down because doctors aren't paid with this economic distress. They fail to understand that North Korea is just an example. If North Korea were to implement MFA, they would be pushed over to the brink, and they would have those nuclear threats. They fail to understand that if the United States implements this, then the United States would be in that same position as North Korea as an example, and they would be pushed to the brink and be headstrong to use nuclear weapons just to keep their country alive. They also talk about how MFA fixes racial injustice, but they give no evidence stating about how it'll fix injustice within the doctors. Doctors can still be racist. They can still provide the rich over the minority groups. The rich can easily manipulate the system so that they can get what they want and better healthcare than normal patients. They also, in cross-examination, they also acknowledge that they have nuclear war, but their whole case is they acknowledge that nuclear war is a possibility, but their whole case is about saving lives. So in cross, they stated that they don't think that nuclear war will happen, but if they really cared about lives, they would not enact MFA because this would happen. This is why I urge you to negate. I'm open for crossfire.
All right, great job, Arif. Ethan, if you can kick your camera on for us. And you
for crossfire, may I have a break to use the bathroom?
It's about, yeah, go ahead. So I don't want you to cut into prep time that way.
Okay. I'm ready for crossfire.
Okay, perfect. So Ethan, you have the first question. Time will begin when you start asking.
Okay. You said in your rebuttal that North Korea would be pushed to nuclear war if they implemented MFA as an example.
It's just an example.
Yes, but North Korea already has MFA.
It's just an example.
Why aren't they at war?
If they had economic distress like the United States, then they would be pushed to the brink. The United States is in like a complete economic crisis, and North Korea is doing pretty well with the coronavirus right now. And since the United States isn't doing well, for the United States, then they're gonna have a very shrinked economy, and that would cause like so many things to go wrong. Can I have a question?
Would you like a question? You may
Yeah.
have a question.
Okay, why take the risk when extinction is a possibility?
Because extinction is a very slim possibility.
Okay, but
that is very unlikely to
do you
happen.
think extinction is the worst possible outcome? Like if it did happen, do you think, even if it's a very slim possibility,
Extinction, if it did happen, would be the worst possible outcome.
it would be the worst possible outcome?
Yeah.
So should we do everything in our power to
question?
stop it? Shouldn't we do everything in our power to stop it?
Yes.
Okay.
May I have a question?
Yeah, you can have a question.
In your case, you stated that that hospitals would be overflowing with people if MFA was implemented.
They're already overflooded.
How many people would be going to the doctors because overflooded hospitals?
They're already overflooded. So technically nobody's going to be going there, but everybody's going to be having health insurance. So after the coronavirus pandemic has passed, everybody's going to be going to the hospital, and it's basically just going to be the same amount of stress that the United States is doing now. And eventually,
why would more people be going to the hospital?
Because they have health insurance. If somebody gets injured, then they have now free health insurance, so they'll just go to the doctor. And how many people are being injured in that area? Probably so many. How many people are getting sick? So if economic distress is inevitable because taxes go up, wouldn't that just create less doctor pay? And that'll create the quality of healthcare go down, and that would cause more deaths?
Taxes would go up, but so would employee salaries. The companies do not.
What does employee salary have to do with your entire case? Is around
employee salary is what over or balance the taxes individual.
Would doctor salaries go up?
Pay.
Would doctor salaries go up?
Doctors are not the only job.
Would doctor salaries go up though?
That's time. Okay, good job. So we're going to move on to the summary speeches now. So Maybell, would you like to take any prep time before you begin?
You pull up work.
Sorry, what was
Can
that?
I take? I think I'll have prep time. Can I take a minute and 30?
Yep. I will start that time now. That's time.
Yeah. So is anybody not ready? Okay. Timer starts now. Judge, let's illustrate our case for you. Our sole contention is that MFA benefits everyone, no matter their economic status or how they identify. Our first subpoint is that MFA saves both personal and government money. Our current healthcare system is designed to prioritize profits over lives, something that leads to thousands of deaths and bankruptcy. MFA will ensure everyone's safety, and it'll save $2.1 trillion, which impacts every resident of the United States positively. Our opponents do not respond to this $2.1 trillion, so you can cleanly extend it. Our second subpoint is that MFA will take away any racial and gender-based inequalities in the current healthcare system. Judge, it's outrageous that our current healthcare system allows racism and sexism to slide. MFA will give two positive impacts: improved care and promoting justice. MFA will ensure that every resident, no matter what race, gender, age, or height, is taken care of. Now we will defend our case. Our opponents stated in the refute that hospitals will overflood with patients and have the quality of care go down. However, they didn't have the statistics to prove it. As we already said, Callahan, who is a medical student at the Columbia University, was stuck in a horrible cycle of arthritis. It's immoral, she says, the way we treat people in this country. This just shows our current quality is already bad. Our opponents also fail to recognize that there are hundreds of thousands of hospitals countrywide, and having each and every one of them override and shut down is highly unlikely. Our opponents also stated that changing our healthcare system wouldn't get rid of racial and gender inequalities, but in reality, we stated that it'll be rid of injustice in the healthcare system, not overall. My opponents also stated that there's still a systematic injustice, but that actually helps our case. It proves that we currently have a broken system. In their case, our opponents claim that 2 million jobs would be lost. However, my opponent says in rebuttal that you can turn this because wages will be increased overall, so jobs will not be lost and employees would be paid more. Our opponents do not respond to this. Finally, on their argument about nuclear war, remember that Piper says that COVID means the government will cut down on defense spending, so we won't see any new nuclear weapons. They do not respond to this, so they can see their link to their impact. Our opponents also said in Crossfire that there's still a chance of extinction, even 1%, then that would give a negative effect on society. But the theory of probability states otherwise, because under 5% is considered improbable. They also have no evidence stating the probability of a nuclear war. We have clear links into our impact of improved care and promoting justice, which is why you should vote pro ballot. Thank you.
Okay, Thomas, would you like to take any prep time before your summary?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start your running prep now.
Thomas.
Stop.
All right, that was 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So, is anyone not ready?
Make sure you
Wait,
kick your
sorry,
camera
I need
on,
to-
Thomas.
yeah, sorry.
All good.
Okay, so is anyone not ready? Then time starts 3, 2, 1, start. When we implement MFA and fall into economic collapse, there will be underpaid and overworked doctors and a shortage of hospitals and doctors. Therefore, impact neutralizes our opponents and is far worse because after economic collapse, we can have military confrontations and lives is lost. Thus, we win this argument based on scope and magnitude. To address every economic point you have, even if it's true, most Americans will only notice taxes go up. And as we said, with our impact, taxes only hurt the economy. If we increase tax, our impacts is inevitable and we may have irreversible impacts on our society. Based on economic collapse will lead to bigger devastation on magnitude. Medicare for all actually has higher admin costs than private insurance. The CU quantifies that $1 in admin costs in the private sector is equivalent to 1.5 in admin costs in the public sector. As I said in our first rebuttal, doctors will become underpaid, overworked, and this will have a lot less of an incentive to become one. Long wait times, more patients will cause doctors to decrease quality of care and cause more deaths. The impact is irreversible and thus much worse than others. The Institute of Medicine concludes that important contributor to racial disparities and health difference status is the difference in quality of medical care given to racial and ethnic minorities, driven by physician racial bias and stereotypes under immense pressure. This means racial bias will increase like the number of patients and wait times. Our opponent gives no evidence that status quo takes more lives than flooded hospitals, long wait times, and bad quality of care with implementation of MFA. My opponent now has a burden to tell you the positives of MFA outweigh extinction. Also in Crossfire, opponent states that we need to avoid extinction at all costs, therefore conceding their own case and stating basically the only way to stop extinction is not enacting MFA. You should not play with extinction by using probability. Improbable is still a big risk. The government cannot prevent this, and thus from happening, as my opponent cannot answer this in cross. We have statistics showing that jobs will not be lost. There's no logic that if wages are increased, there are more jobs. There's no evidence that staying private profits over lives. The U.S. spends more money than $2 trillion in a decade, and the net is still down, meaning the con is not saving any money and just increasing taxes. 2.1 trillion is nothing considered how many doctors, equipment, hospitals, and more hospitals are needed to maintain a Medicare for all. People who don't have healthcare now will just end up paying higher taxes. This is exactly like going up to a homeless person and taking all their money away when it's needed for food. They conceded economic collapse, they conceded military confrontation. Therefore, hundreds of millions of lives lost is much worse than fixing racial injustice, which my opponent also conceded, saying there's racial injustice right now, but conceding again because doctors are seeing more minority patients and giving extra care and extra incentive to have racial bias. For these reasons, I urge you to negate.
Fantastic. And now we're going to move into the final focus speeches, which are 2 minutes in length. Ethan, you're up first. Would you like to take any prep time before your final focus?
No.
Okay, awesome. You can kick your camera on for us.
Yeah. It is 2 minutes. Let me change my timer. Actually, I would like to take prep time.
Okay, you have 1:45, so I'll run up until then unless you stop me beforehand, all right? Your time starts now.
Okay, stop break time. Stop. Stop break time. I'm ready. Time starts in 3, 2. So, Judge, let me restate our case. Our sole contention is that MFA benefits everyone, no matter the economic status or gender identification. Our first subpoint is that MFA saves personal and government money. Our current system is meant to make money at the cost. MFA will ensure that no matter someone's financial status, they will be provided health care while saving $2.1 trillion. Our second subpoint is that MFA will remove racial and gender inequalities from the healthcare system. Our current system allows these problems to thrive as doctors can refuse to treat or give higher prices to people of different races or sexualities. MFA will prevent that and give two positive impacts on improve care and promoting justice. MFA ensures that every resident, no matter what race, gender, or age they are, is taken care of. As my partner stated, our opponent said that changing the country's healthcare system wouldn't get rid of racial and sexual inequality. We stated it's in the healthcare system, not overall. They also stated that there still is systematic injustice, but that statement actually improves our case. Our opponents also claim that doctors will be underpaid and overworked under MFA if they don't respond to our turn, which says that MFA would increase wages for all since employees do not have to pay for healthcare. They also never provide evidence to quantify how many doctors will quit their job and how many hospitals will close, so you should not give this argument any weight in the round. Finally, they say that all impacts are outweighed by nuclear war and extinction. They completely ignore that we've taken out their link to extinction, as Piper says that COVID means the government will cut down on defense spending so that we won't see any nuclear weapons, and even if we had the budget, nuclear war would be improbable at best. They didn't respond to this, so they concede their link to the impacts of military intervention in nuclear war. They also said that we should do anything in our power to stop nuclear war, gave no evidence that MFA would cause it. What if nuclear war happens because we didn't pass MFA and didn't have the manpower to sustain war? We have clear links into our impacts of improved care and promoting justice, which is why you should vote for a pro ballot.
Perfect. Okay, Arav, you have 38
I think that's
seconds.
like 2 minutes.
Yep, that was perfect timing, Ethan. That's good. Arav, you got 38 seconds remaining. Would you like to run that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll start that time now. Okay, that's time.
Okay, so off time roadmap, I'll be going up my opponent's flow and then defending their attacks on us. Okay. Okay. My time starts now. They conceded our impact of economic collapse. This will actually lead to more deaths because there will be a doctor shortage and doctors will have less pay. Even if they have more pay, economic collapse will lead to less pay. They also conceded that the U.S. government spends more than $2 trillion in a decade, so that the net would actually not be more. They also conceded that poverty would be increased because they're just taxing people without healthcare. They also conceded that racial disparities are actually in medical care because of stereotypes. Doctors will still be stereotyping even in Medicare for all. They also conceded that doctors will become underpaid and overworked, causing them less of an incentive to be one. They conceded that there'll be long wait times and more patients. They also conceded that it saves money. As I stated earlier in my speech, the U.S. spends more than $2.1 trillion in a decade. They also conceded that MFA would fall into economic collapse. They say that we have no evidence leading to. They said that we have no evidence leading to nuclear war, but in fact, that's our whole impact. Our impact is coronavirus lessens the economy. MFA will lead to recession. Then the nation becomes headstrong and they can't provide for the citizens, and so then they'll make nuclear threats. This is exactly. Then my opponent states that extinction might happen with no MFA, but he gives no evidence stating this. And there's no logical reasoning why if there's more wages, then how will they? If there's more wages, there's more. Nobody's gonna leave their jobs. They also state a civil rights movement, which is completely off topic, because if a civil rights movement were to happen right now, this would definitely push us over the brink to go into military confrontation. They also state that there would be profits over lives, yet they give no evidence. They also state that wages increase, jobs lost. We don't have to give specific evidence about hospitals shutting down. It's simple logic that if hospitals are overflooded and patients can't be treated, then the hospitals will have to shut down and more deaths will be lost just because of this economic disaster. For these reasons, I urge you to negate.
Fantastic, Arav. Okay. So that was our first debate of the showcase. It was a very phenomenal round. I really want to thank everyone for doing so well in that round. You guys did a really, really good job. So without further ado, we're going to move straight into that second round. So again, we have Maybell, Thomas, and Arav who are debating twice for us, which is very commendable. And I think that's going to be very beneficial for them in the long run. So in this round, we have Anna and Maybell on the pro team, and Maybell is going to be speaking second this round, so they switched around. And then Thomas and Arav again on the con team. So I believe in this round we agreed that con would speak first, just so that we can have kind of one either side. So without further ado, Thomas, whenever you're ready, if you can flip your camera on for us, check that everyone's good, and then we're good to begin the second round.
Okay, so is anyone not ready? Okay, so 3, 2, 1, start. Wait, no. My partner and I oppose the result. The federal government should enact the Medicare for All Act of 2019. The government has the obligation to maximize the well-being of its people. This means you should evaluate this round based on which side does the most good for the majority of people. Our sole contention is economic collapse. The economy is in recession currently and is shrinking. World Bank 20. The swift and massive shock of the coronavirus pandemic plunged the global economy into severe contraction. The global economy will shrink by 5.2% this year. Economic activity amongst advanced economies is anticipated to shrink 7% in 2020. Interruptions in schooling and primary health care access are likely to have lasting impacts on human capital development. Tomlinson 2019. If Sanders' plan is the gold standard, it is also the most problematic, eliminating 2 million jobs and creating a system that most Americans don't want. According to Kenneth Thorpe, to fund the program, payroll and income taxes would have to increase from a combined 8.4% in Sanders' plan to 20%. Even the person who wrote the bill said that the taxes will go up. I do think it's appropriate to acknowledge that taxes will go up. Sanders admitted they're going to go up significantly for the wealthy. Taking insurance companies out of the supply chain would save money, but most of that cost reduction comes from laying off 2 million people, according to an independent analysis. MFA would eliminate consumer choice and put the government in charge of setting prices and determining what care is appropriate. AmericasHealthFuture.org. A new analysis from Penn Wharton reveals that MFA could shrink US GDP by as much as 24% by the year 2060. MFA would burden American families with unaffordable new costs. Medicare for All would require the equivalent of tripling payroll taxes and more than doubling all other taxes. 71% of households with private insurance would wind up paying more than they would under the current system. Kenneth Thorpe, Chairman of Health Policy and Management Department at Emory University. Continued deficit spending collapses the economy. Roy 11. Spending cuts needs to be made to avoid severe economic disruptions. The national debt and deficits are rising at an unconscious rate. The IMF report adds urgency to the need for meaningful actions to confront the nation's debt head-on. If we fail to stop the spending spree, our nation will face economic collapse. Impact: financial markets have responded not positively but negatively to higher taxes. Ever since Bush announced his Yes New Taxes campaign, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of the most reliable economic barometers, has tumbled in free fall. On average, stocks have forfeited roughly 15% of their value. Since 1960, tax increases have led to slowdowns in economic growth and often recessions. Economic collapse leads to global nuclear war through miscalculation that causes extinction. Bearden 2000. History bears out that desperate nations take desperate actions. Harvard's Benjamin Friedman found that prolonged periods of economic distress have been characterized also by public antipathy towards minority or foreign countries, attitudes that can help fuel unrest, terrorism, or even war. Economic collapse, the stress on poor nations will have increased to the point where areas like North Korea would be desperate enough to use nukes as a threat. Strategic nuclear studies have shown, under such extreme stress conditions, once a few nukes are launched, adversaries and potential adversaries are then compelled to launch on perception of preparation by one's adversary. Rapid escalation to WMD exchange occurs. The resulting Great Nuclear War will destroy civilization as we know it. Even if it's not extinction economic crisis, economic conflicts or another financial crisis could lead to military confrontation. IPSnews.net. The result of this cannot be outweighed. As if we suffer this economic drop at the state we are at right now, this can surely happen. This impact is irreversible and thus the worst possible outcome. For these reasons, please negate.
Okay, awesome. So let's move over to Anna. Whenever you're ready, Anna, if you can flip your camera. Oh, perfect. Perfect. She's ahead of the game. If you want to just check that everyone's ready.
Is anybody not ready? Okay, then my time starts now. My partners and I support the resolve that the United States federal government should enact the Medicare for All Act of 2019. Our sole contention is that MFA produces healthcare to all residents of the United States. A person's care shouldn't be limited to what they can afford or how they identify, which is exactly what the status quo is depicting. We have two key points we would like to make in support of our case. First, MFA is not only great for every U.S. resident, but it saves a large portion of government and personal money. Our current healthcare system is primarily designed not to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way, but to maximize profits for health insurance companies, the pharmaceutical industry, and medical equipment suppliers. So many American families face bankruptcy and financial ruin because of the outrageously high cost of healthcare. And Bernie Sanders of 2020 reported 30% of U.S. adults with private health insurance delays seeking medical care each year due to cost. Sanders also stated, "When thousands of Americans die each year because they cannot get the health care they desperately need." The top 5 health insurance companies last year made nearly $21 billion in profits, led by United Health, which made almost $12 billion alone. Our current healthcare system is putting profits over lives. Judge, do you think this is tolerable? Additionally, Callahan, who is a medical student at Columbia University, was stuck in a horrific cycle of arthritis. "It's immoral," she says, "the way that we treat people in this country. Using the MFA system, we would save a substantial number of lives while saving more money than our current system." A study done by the right-wing Mercatus Center estimated that MFA would save Americans more than $2 trillion over a decade, reducing the projected cost of healthcare between 2022 and 2031 from $59.7 trillion to $57.6 trillion. Those $2.1 trillion saved could help our society tremendously. Second, MFA would take away any racial and gender-based inequalities in the current healthcare system. Felix Cameron of the University of North Carolina notes that 28% of transgender individuals has experienced harassment in a doctor's office, and 19% had been denied medical care. Another study conducted by Jen Cates et al. From Kaiser Family Foundation found that lesbian, gay, and bisexual individuals have higher rates of unmet medical needs. because of cost and are less likely to have a regular provider. Additionally, Robert Pearl of Forbes 2015 furthers that 25% of African Americans have elevated blood pressure compared to 10% of white Americans. Yet Black patients are 10% less likely to be screened for high cholesterol, leading to elevated rates of strokes and heart failure. Judge, it's outrageous that our current healthcare system allows such sexism and racism to slide. Fortunately, Medicare for All can fix these problems. Caruso of the Harvard Public Health Review 2015 contends that a single-payer healthcare system would level the playing field for minorities. There are two impacts. First, improved care. In a 2013 study, Catherine Baker of the New England Journal of Public Health found that the expanded healthcare coverage led to a 15% increase in cholesterol level screenings. Second, promoting justice. Valerie Blake from West Virginia University stated, Medicare for All can generate a meaningful and intentional civil rights movement in healthcare that leaves our country with more robust civil rights protections for patients in the future. MFA will ensure that people of any race, gender, age, or height are taken care of. Thus, we affirm.
Great job, Anna. Okay, Thomas, if you can kick your camera back on, you have first question for Crossfire, and time will begin whenever you start asking.
Okay. Why take the risk when extinction is a possibility? As humans, our natural instinct should be to wish for the survival of our descendants, right? Is extinction the worst possible outcome?
Well, yeah, it is, but if we don't treat people, then basically we're just ignoring the fact that people are dying, and even though it won't cause nuclear war, it could still damage the economy because like people are dying and stuff.
But wouldn't people die in wait, actually, okay, but wouldn't extinction be a worse possible outcome than like some people being denied medical care? It's like a horrible thing, but extinction, well, do you believe that extinction would be the worst possible outcome?
Yes.
Then that would be worse than the chance of that would be worse than denying people medical care.
But then we're not trying to save people's lives when they're like sick and stuff. Whereas, because we're trying to prevent something that might not even happen because the probability is kind of pretty low.
Even an improbable probability should never even be tried. A 5%, as she said, actually no. Improbable. You shouldn't play with extinction with probability. It's like not smart. But do you need a question?
Sure. How will enacting Medicare for All lead to nuclear war? Because Medicare for All is like intended to help people, but nuclear war is super extreme and it's not helping people.
Well, Medicare for All, as we said, would increase the financial strain on our country, and as we said, economic distress would lead to public antipathy towards foreign countries, and unstable countries like North Korea could like be provoked by public antipathy towards it. Also, the U.S. economic collapse could lead to global decline because of trade, and countries that could make countries like North Korea more aggressive if the U.S. is more like saving inclined for its resources.
That's time. All right, great, Crossfire. We're going to move on to the rebuttal speeches. So we have, we have Arav up first. So Arav, would you like to take any prep time before your rebuttal?
Yes.
I will start prep now.
Stop prep.
Okay, that was 58 seconds.
All right. Is anybody not ready? Okay. Time, start. No. Their sole contention is giving healthcare to all. But would you rather have giving healthcare to all or overflooded lines? The quality of healthcare will go down because of these lines and the number of patients, and there will be a doctor shortage because doctors aren't being paid as much. And hospitals will shut down because there's so many people in these lines. Their second argument is it saves money. Cross-supplier contention one. My opponent tells you that MFA will save money. Even if this is true, the Houston Chronicle states that there will be 2 million jobs off. And referring back to a quote by Thorpe, there will be at least 20% increase on taxes. Turn their contention because MFA will save money for the government but not its citizens. Therefore, they're not maximizing well-being. And also, they don't care about saving lives because they denied the fact that extinction. They acknowledged the fact that extinction was a possibility, but they denied the fact that it wasn't improbable. So it is probable, and they denied. And their entire speech is revolved around saving people's lives. And if they're not going to try to stop extinction, then they're not. Then their entire case is completely ruined. Also, the government is cutting corners by reducing doctor pay and laying off 2 million people. Even if the government is saving money, the people in the U.S. are going to notice that their taxes have been increased and will cause major unrest in the community. They also talk about improved care and better screenings, but turn their argument because the quality of care within doctors will go down and new life-saving technologies will be in wait. Long lines and wait times will cause doctors to speed through patients to get to the same amount of money as they used to, according to Smart Asset. Promoting justice and equality. They talk about promoting justice and equality, but they never talk about how it will promote justice and equality. They just say that the bill decides that the doctors have to do this. The doctors aren't obliged to promote justice and equality. They can do whatever they want. Expanding access to health insurance won't remedy racial disparities, says Peak 10. This means that enacting MFA won't reduce racial disparities, even if this means racial minorities have insurance, but they're still facing barriers outside the doctor's office. Turn the argument against them because Peak 10 continues saying that personally mediated racism is more likely when time pressure and high cognitive demand. This means that doctors are being less paid, there's more patients, and hospitals are shutting down and hospitals will shut down because of this. This is exactly time pressure and high cognitive demand. This is and limited resources too. This creates more racial bias because the doctors are likely to favor rich majority rather than poor minority because they want to still get the same amount of money. Now they talk about they also medical poverty is a big thing. Turn and cross-apply our second argument about tax increases. Poverty would increase more in the pro world because of the majority of people will lose the more of their household income and gain savings in healthcare costs. Poverty rate could increase over 30%. They also concede the fact that even the people who don't have health insurance right now will still be paying just more taxes. The people who don't have health insurance, who aren't paying copays and premiums, are just going to have to end up paying more taxes. It's exactly like taking away money from somebody who needs it for food. They also talk about how they don't care about the greater good because they don't care about if extinction is even a probability, then they don't care about that. All they want is for a short period of time to do this. They also don't give a time frame. They talk about a civil rights movement, but they don't give a time frame of when the civil rights movement will end and when it will start. So who knows? It could take so long for this to happen. They also have nothing against our link argument. about how we're going down that chain, and economic distress, economic collapse, and then nuclear war. Even if it's not nuclear war, there'll still be economic distress, and economic distress leads to doctor shortages because doctors won't have enough pay. And wages, and they may say that wages will not cut down on doctors, but actually according to the Houston Chronicle, we're losing 2 million jobs because of insurance companies, and we're losing $21 billion according to their case. Why would we risk this just to get low quality healthcare for everyone around us? Even if this is they say that in their case that it will stop injustice, but as I said, P10 completely contradicts this. This is why I urge you to negate.
All right, Mabel, would you like to take any prep time before rebuttal?
Could I take 30 seconds?
Yes, of course. I will start that time now.
Okay, that's 30 seconds, right?
Yes.
Okay. My time starts now. For their first point, they stated that COVID-19 is making the economy unstable, but the shock of COVID-19 is what we need to realize our healthcare system was failing. Coronavirus cases are getting worse by the day, with hundreds of thousands of deaths. So many people can't afford health insurance and thus don't get the medical attention that they need, which proves that our current system isn't working. With MFA, everyone would be treated. Death is irreversible, whereas economic collapse is not. For their second subpoint, as we tell you in our case, the right-wing Mercatus Center found that MFA would save $2.1 trillion. Raising taxes wouldn't be as much as a problem as they state, because families would be spending less on healthcare than they do in the status quo. They also stated that it would raise taxes for the rich, not for everyone. Judge, wouldn't you agree healthcare is most important? Furthermore, you can turn this argument. Despite taxes, MFA would on net increase salaries by raising wages. According to Studies of The Guardian, removing the private healthcare costs from employers would generate significant increase in the salaries of the workers, so that even if they paid a 6% income to fund MFA, they would still have more gross income. For their third subpoint, what they're saying is a chain of events. In a chain of events, if one thing doesn't happen, then the whole thing won't happen. And at each link of the chain, the government can prevent it from happening, even if we don't have evidence proving that they already did, as MFA hasn't started yet. So the probability of a nuclear war occurring is extremely low. What they're also saying is MFA is causing economic distress, but in reality, MFA would be great for our economy. As my partner and I stated, if we switched to MFA, we would save $2.1 trillion. The government would increase taxes, but that would leave a positive effect on us all, because even if we're spending more on taxes than we'd like, more lives would be saved. And as I already stated, death is irreversible, whereas economic distress is. They also fail to recognize the fatal flaw in their case. COVID-19's impact on the U.S. economy will also impact national spending. Pfeiffer of the Brookings Institute in 2020 argues that defense budget is unlikely to increase due to COVID's impact, meaning that the Department of Defense will have to cut down on their weapon purchases. If they do so, they will not have the most modernized weapons, which means that the U.S. will not be as strong in the nuclear war. For that reason, it is highly unlikely that the U.S. would pursue nuclear conflict. Finally, remember that their case tells you that economic stress makes other countries, such as North Korea, more likely to use nuclear weapons. However, they provide no reason as to MFA would push these countries to use weapons. we know that they stated that this is an example. However, they're stating that this is happening. As they also said at the top of their case, there's already global economic problems, so if these countries want to use nuclear weapons, they would have done so already. Our opponent also said that if there's a chance of extinction, even 1%, then that would give negative effects on society. But the theory of probability states otherwise, because under 5% is considered highly improbable. They also have no evidence stating the probability of a nuclear war. They said that because we said extinction is the worst outcome, we're conceding our own argument, but we believe that without MFA, extinction would be more likely, as thousands of people are dying from lack of attention and care. For these reasons, we are proud to affirm. Thank you.
Awesome job. Let's move into the crossfire period. So Arav and Maybell, if you can kick your cameras on. Arav, you have first question. Time begins when you start asking.
Do you think extinction is the worst possible outcome? If it were to happen, do you think extinction is the worst possible outcome? You're muted.
Yes, it is the worst outcome, but it's highly improbable.
So would you risk the lives of everyone on Earth just so that you can save 1,000 people in the period before extinction?
No, well, without MFA, more lives would actually be dead, not just 1,000, the hundreds of thousands. Like already.
Do you have any evidence
last
proving that hundreds of thousands of people are dying because MFA is not being implemented?
Well, as we stated in our case, Bernie Sanders stated, while thousands of Americans die each year because they cannot get the healthcare they desperately need. The top 5 health insurance
hundreds of
companies
thousands or thousands? Hundreds of thousands or thousands? If it's only thousands, do you have a question? If it's only thousands, then
thousands can also imply hundreds of thousands. They never necessarily said how many thousands.
Okay, so then if there's hundreds of thousands of people dying, how can hospitals accommodate all those people?
Well, they're gonna be working.
They're gonna be working.
Did I get?
Yeah.
How many more people would be going to doctors to cause flooded plans?
Their hospitals are already overflooded.
Well, could you explain?
Yeah. In COVID-19, hospitals are already overflooded. They had to bring they had to bring 2 medical ships, and hospitals are still already overflooded. 2 medical ships the size of cruise ships, one to Los Angeles, one to New York, and hospitals are still overflooded.
Well, would it well, isn't lives more important? Like you said,
if extinction is probable, then lives are going to be gone anyways.
Okay, well, why do you think we'll be in a nuclear war? Why do you think we'll encourage nuclear
Because
war?
the economic if the U.S. falls into under economic collapse, then they'll have no usage of trade, and other countries and terrorists have every right to threaten us with nuclear weapons, such as North Korea.
Isn't that what the other countries want?
To threaten us with nuclear weapons?
Yeah, and also.
Okay, so then if other countries are threatening us with nuclear weapons, then extinction is highly probable then.
That's time.
Is that what you're saying?
They're only gonna threaten us if they want to.
Yeah, because the U.S. is the center of the.
All right, that's time. Good job, guys. All right, we're gonna move to the summary periods. So we have Thomas speaking first. Thomas, would you like to take any prep time?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I will start your time now.
Stop prep.
Yeah, stop.
Okay, it was 2 minutes and 8 seconds. You can turn your camera on.
Okay, wait. Okay. So is anyone not ready? Okay, so then the time starts in 3, 2, 1. Okay, go. When we implement MFA and fall into economic collapse, there will be underpaid and overworked doctors and a shortage of hospitals and doctors. Therefore, impact neutralizes our opponents, and is far worse because after economic collapse, we can have military confrontation and lives lost. Thus, we win this argument based on scope and magnitude. To address every economic point if you have, even if this is true, most Americans will only notice taxes going up. And as we said in our impact, taxes are increased is only going to hurt our economy, because if we increase taxes, our impact is inevitable, and we may end up with irreversible impacts on our society. Based on economic collapse, will lead to bigger devastation on magnitude. Medicare actually has higher admin costs than private insurance. The CEA quantifies $1 in admin costs in private sector is equivalent to $1.5 in admin costs in public sector. As we said in our first rebuttal, doctors will be underpaid and overworked, and this will cause less of an incentive to become long wait times, and more patients will cause doctors to decrease quality of care and cause more deaths. The impact is irreversible and therefore much worse than others. The Institute of Medicine concludes that an important contributor to racial disparities in health status is this difference in quality of medical care given to racial and ethnic minorities, driven by physician racial bias and stereotypes under immense pressure. This means that racial bias will just increase the number of patients and wait times. Our opponent gives no evidence that the status quo takes more lives than flooded hospitals, long wait times, and bad quality of care with implementation of MFA. Our opponent now has the burden to tell you the positives of MFA outweigh extinction. Also in Crossfire, our opponent stated that we needed to go and to avoid extinction at all costs, and therefore conceding their own case and stating that basically the only way to stop extinction is not enacting MFA. Then we should do that. Highly improbable should not be acceptable for extinction. My opponent does not value lives, as if extinction is probable, they won't stop. The government cannot prevent this from happening, as my opponent could not answer this in cross. We have statistics showing that jobs will be lost. There is no logic that if wages are increasing, there are more jobs. They have no evidence stating profit over lives. The U.S. spends more money than $2 trillion in a decade, so the net is still going down, meaning the con is not saving any more money. Just increasing taxes. People who don't have healthcare now will just end up paying higher taxes. This is exactly like going to a homeless person and taking all their money away when it is needed for food. My opponent stated that if other countries wanted to threaten us with nuclear weapons, then there is a high chance of extinction once we fall into economic collapse. They conceded economic collapse will lead to more deaths. They conceded military confrontations. Therefore, hundreds of millions of lives will be lost, is much worse than fixing racial injustice, which my opponent also conceded, saying there's racial injustice right now, but conceding again that doctors are seeing more minority patients and giving an extra incentive for racial bias. Thus, I urge you to concede.
All right, great job. It's all good, Thomas. It happens. All right. Anna, would you like to take any prep time before your summary?
How much do we have left?
You haven't taken any yet, so you still have 4 minutes.
Okay, then I'll take like a minute and a half.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's time. And I misspoke. I forgot Maybell took 30 seconds before rebuttal. I forgot to write that down. But that still leaves you with 2 minutes before final focus. So you're in a very
Okay.
good.
Hmm. Is anybody not ready? Okay, then, my time starts now. Judge, let's illustrate our case for you. Our sole contention is that MFA benefits everyone, no matter their economic status or how they identify. Our first subpoint is that MFA saves both personal and government money. Our current healthcare system is designed to prioritize profits over lives, something that leads to thousands of deaths and bankruptcy. MFA will ensure everyone's safety, and it'll save $2.1 trillion, which impacts every resident of the U.S. positively. Her opponents do not respond to this 2.1 trillion, so you can cleanly extend it. Our second subpoint is that MFA will take away any racial and gender-based inequalities in the current healthcare system. Judge, it's outrageous that our current healthcare system allows such racism and sexism to slide. MFA will give two positive impacts: improve care and promoting justice. MFA ensures that every resident, no matter what race, gender, age, or height, is taken care of. Now we will defend our case. Our opponents stated in their refute that hospitals will overflood with patients and have the quality of care go down. However, they didn't have the statistics to prove it. As we already said, Callahan, who was a medical student at Columbia University, was stuck in a horrific cycle of arthritis. It's immoral, she says, the way that we treat people in this country. This just shows that our current quality is already bad. Our opponents also fail to recognize that there are hundreds of thousands of hospitals countrywide, and having each and every one override and shut down is highly unlikely, even if it is gradually. Our opponents also stated that changing our healthcare system wouldn't get rid of racial and gender inequalities, but in reality, we stated that it'll be rid of injustice in the healthcare system, not overall. My opponents also stated that there still is systematic injustice, but that actually helps our case. It proves that we currently have a broken system. In their case, our opponents claim that 2 million jobs will be lost. However, my partner says in rebuttal that you can turn this because wages will be increased overall, so jobs will not be lost and employees will be paid more. Finally, on the argument about nuclear war, remember that Pfeiffer says that COVID means that the government will cut down on defense spending, so they won't see new nuclear weapons. They do not respond to this, so they concede their link to their impact. Our opponents also said in Crossfire that there's still a chance of extinction, even 1%. Then that would give negative effects on society. But the theory of probability states otherwise. Under 5% is considered improbable. They also have no evidence stating the probability of a nuclear war. My opponents also state that if we truly care about lives, then we shouldn't enact MFA. So they are saying that we shouldn't even try to save lives to prevent something that is unlikely to happen. They also we have clear links into our impacts of improved care and promoting justice, which is why you should vote pro.
Perfect. Okay. Arav, you have a minute 54 remaining. Would you like to take that before your final focus?
Yeah, I'll just take all of it.
Perfect. I will start that time now. All right, that's time.
Okay, let me pull up a timer. Okay. My time starts now. My opponents forgot to acknowledge that we defended and attacked all their points. They just repeated their case for clarification when it's already been outweighed. If this is again repeated in the next speech, it should not be considered because it's already been outweighed. Now, I'll go up the flow of my opponent's case. They conceded that economic collapse will actually lead to more death. They think we have no evidence, but our entire link chain is based off of evidence. They have no evidence that not having MFA will actually not lead to extinction. They also conceded the fact that military confrontation will become. We have evidence stating that there will actually have military confrontation, yet they're just using their own logic without any evidence stating that there's not. Hundreds of millions of lives will be lost, rather than the thousands that they said in Crossfire will be lost. They also state again that there's $2 trillion a decade, but we've already attacked this, stating that the US spends more than $2 trillion in a decade. So there's no reason in repeating this in the next speech. It should not be considered. They also said that we don't value lives, but we do value lives. If they don't value lives because they're using that possibility of extinction, that even though there is a possibility of extinction, they're just maybe saving 1,000 lives before we all go extinct. There's no point in doing that. They also concede all of our attacks on their points. They conceded that for saving money, the U.S. actually spends more money in a decade than $2 trillion. They also conceded that the U.S. will fall into economic collapse. They're just hoping that it won't. They're just using probability that it won't. They also conceded that there will be improved care. They never give any evidence that there will actually be improved care. They also conceded promoting justice and equality. We actually have evidence stating that racial biases and stereotypes won't stop. It will actually be more. According to the Institute of Medicine, they concluded that a contributor to racial disparities is actually healthcare. Our opponent has no evidence that the status quo will take more lives than MFA. And now my opponent has the burden to tell you that all the positives of MFA outweigh the probability, the slim chance of extinction, as they're saying. For these reasons, I urge you to negate.
Okay, Maybell, you still have 2 minutes. Would you like to take that before your final focus?
Yes, I'd like the rest of my prep time.
Perfect. I'll start that time now.
Also, my opponents can't bring up any argument to go on economic distress as they've never attacked it before.
Okay, that's time.
Okay. So is anybody not ready? Okay. Time starts now. So, Judge, we believe our evidence wasn't acknowledged enough, so let me restate our case. Our sole contention is that MFA benefits everyone, no matter their economic status or identification. Our first subpoint is that MFA saves personal and government money. Our current system is meant to make money at the cost of lives. MFA will ensure no matter someone's financial status, they will be provided with health care while saving $2.1 trillion. Our second subpoint is that MFA will remove racial and gender inequalities from the healthcare system. Judge, it's outrageous that our current healthcare system allows racism and sexism to thrive if doctors can refuse treatment or give higher prices to people of different races or sexuality. MFA will prevent that and give two positive impacts on everyone: improved care and promoting justice. MFA ensures that every resident, no matter what race, gender, or age they are, is taken care of. Our opponent said hospitals will overflow with patients and thus the quality of care is going down. But just because MFA is put into action, more people wouldn't be getting sick. It's the same amount of patients. So having hospitals overflood is highly improbable. Our opponents also claim that doctors will be underpaid and overworked under MFA, but they don't respond to our return, which says MFA will increase wages for all since employers do not have to pay for healthcare. They also don't provide evidence to quantify how many doctors will quit their job and how many hospitals will close. So you should not give this argument any weight in the round. A lot of rich people also devote a lot of money to healthcare, so economic struggles are improbable. Finally, they say that all impacts are outweighed by nuclear and war and extinction, but they completely ignore the fact that we've taken out their links to extinction. We have evidence. Remember Pfeiffer telling us that COVID means the government will cut down on defense spending so we won't have the budget and nuclear war would be highly improbable. Furthermore, they say since extinction is the worst possible outcome, it should automatically win the round. However, we have been saying since the first crossfire that the chance of nuclear war is minimal, but the probability of people dying in the status quo is certain. Our opponent also added an argument over time, so their argument should be ignored. We have clear links into our evidence of improved care and promoting justice, which is why you should vote for a pro ballot. Thank you.
All right, awesome job, everyone. Fantastic round. Okay, so if everyone can just flick their cameras back on, everyone that was debating at any point today, we can all just put our cameras back on.
All right, well done. And thank you all for who joined us for the showcase. And I just want to say that for students who didn't know anything about public forum debate, the rules, the format, nothing about the topic, you have done such an incredible job. It usually takes Niamh and I about 5 weeks of high school to teach students to get to where you are right now in 4.5 days. So congratulations. And with that, we will say goodbye to everyone, but please keep in touch. Our Capital Debate emails are always available. Congratulations. Bye, everyone.